So, have you ever noticed how every other department within your organization tends to have policies and procedures, but you, as the UX team, rarely do? And there are, after all, rules for everything. There's rules for procurement, rules for budgets, rules for installing software. Heck, I've even come across companies where there are rules about eating fish at your desk. And by the way, nobody should ever be allowed to eat fish at their desk. But ask someone what the rules are around UX, and you'll often get blank looks. The difference is most teams have taken the time to write their rules down, while we as UXers tend not to. And that's something that we need to fix. And we're going to start with the most accessible and impactful type of UX guidelines that you can create: design principles. Design principles are a set of high-level guidelines to help your organization make consistent, user-centered decisions. They provide a North Star for teams as they navigate the thousands of tiny choices that shape the user experience, from interface copy to onboarding flows. And done right, they keep people focused on what matters, ensure UX is considered across the board, not just by your team, and help settle disagreements without calling in the UX police. In short, they make your life easier, they make your colleagues make better decisions, and they improve the overall user experience. Now, you might have heard of design principles before, and you might have even created your own. However, if you don't create them in the right way, they'll rarely succeed. And this is because if you try to create them in a vacuum, nobody's going to follow them. It's not enough to draft a list of nice sounding statements and post them on your wiki. People will rightly wonder where they came from and why they should care about them. You need to build buy-in from the very start. And that's a process that I guide my clients through. And it begins by finding inspiration. Typically, I will go with my clients to a website like principles.design, which is a massive collection of design principles used by lots of organizations around the world. And together we will collect about 30 existing principles that could work for their organizations. And we choose ones that we feel reflect the values that we want to promote and that we could personally stand behind. Once we've done that, we share this shortlist with a broad group of colleagues across the whole organization. And we ask them to vote on the principles that resonate with them. And this gives those stakeholders a voice and makes them feel involved with the process, and that will give credibility to the final list. Note that because you pre-selected principles that could work for your organization, you've effectively prevented your stakeholders from choosing inappropriate options while still giving them meaningful input. Once you've done that, we obviously don't need 30 principles because nobody's going to remember them anyway. So based on that stakeholder voting, we want to narrow it down to between 6 and 10 of the most popular options. This gives you enough to provide structure, but not so many that you end up with a lot of white noise. And you can massage the results, so you don't necessarily need to just pick the 6 highest voted ones. Once you've finalized your principles, don't just email them out and move on. Introduce them into team meetings, refer to them in design critiques, make sure that they're part of how you do design reviews, make them a part of the way work gets done. And later in this course, we're going to look at things like marketing and promoting our work internally within an organization, and that will include talking about things like design principles. Design principles are massively powerful, but they are just the start. If we want UX to be taken seriously across the organization, we need more than good intentions. We need hard policies. And that's what we're going to explore in the next lesson. We're going to look at how to create lightweight, flexible UX policies that will help guide work without grinding things to a halt. But until then, have a think. What one design decision your team has debated or argued with stakeholders over recently that you could shape into a principle which would resolve that problem in the future?